Jordan is airborne heading up. Red is still diving, Kakashi shouted out. Tom had to commend them on the little system of using his magic hearing to receive messages from above and below. It worked quite well. And the black is running like a stab rat. Good. Open the doors and someone get the nook. Now! Rachuk ordered, as the mechanism came to life, with Perna and Shiva cranking it open. Dakota was first out the door, slipping under the opening gate and running straight off the edge, diving down towards the stricken lady. Tom jogged out onto the platform, along with the rest of the dragonettes that had been waiting there, looking down. It did not look pretty. 3 of the 4 brigands that had been on the ground with the Black Dragon lay dead, strewn around the place. 2 of them had been splashed by the Black Dragon's acid when she had sprayed around madly after losing an eye. Tom had given the 2 of them a mercy shot, as they lay screaming in agony. The acid had eaten right through their armour, even the steel just seemed to melt. The 3rd had missed the acid, but taken a pair of crossbow bolts from the keep for his troubles instead. The Nook had bolted for the keep as soon as the fighting started, but she had gone splashed across the back by an unlucky spray of acid. By the time Tom made it to the edge, Dakota had already landed, clearly looking to do what she could. Then Gossa came running past Tom, also diving down, carrying a bag of that white powder they used to neutralise that acid. The Nook had stopped screaming, but was still writhing around, clearly struggling with her armour. At least she's not dead yet, Tom sighed, shoulders sagging, not sure what he could do to help. Red's still diving, Kakashi cried out, pointing upwards. Rachuk looked up, then glanced at the tower. The Major is already airborne and going for him. Where is Jarix? Over there, intercept course, Tom replied, pointing up as well, having spotted Jarix coming in from the opposite side. The 2 dragons were racing towards the keep. Back inside, now, Rachuk ordered. Weapons trained on the platform in case they try landing. How do we fight the fire if it comes to that? Tom questioned, thinking he really should have asked that before. Lincosta and bucket chains, Rachuk replied with an expression that didn't seem overly confident in the effectiveness of that idea, as he ushered everyone back inside, he himself remaining on the platform. Fucking hell, Tom cursed, as he checked that his rifle was full, remaining outside next to Rachuk. If it came to it, he could make it inside no problem, and he did have the only gun that might help out a little at this range. As the 2 dragons came closer, he felt himself tense as he raised the rifle. Rachuk didn't protest, though a quick glance from Tom confirmed the guy was ready to run for it. Then Jarix fired and missed. The rest seemingly had been waiting for it, and turned up towards Jarix after dodging the beam, bathing the blue's underside in fire as Tom's shoulders sagged in despair. Whatever damage had been done wasn't knocking Jarix out of the sky though, as he turned clear of the Red's attempts at getting into melee, which would doubtlessly have been catastrophic for Jarix. Then the 50 cal spoke, the deep thump ringing out as it spat flame from Jarix's back. Tom strained his eyes to try and tell what damage was done to the Red. They were really far away, but he did spot someone jump off Jarix's back. Alone, much to Tom's surprise. It didn't take long for 2 more to follow, but the first had made it quite far ahead, diving right for the Red Dragon's crew, which had disembarked, seemingly to attack Jordan and his soldiers. Damn it, Jackie, don't go alone, Tom cursed, looking at the lone dragonette in the lead who dove right into the enemy formation before pulling up, looking a touch clumsy for some reason, Tom straining his eyes to try and tell what was going on up there. Then he heard the sounds of cheers coming from higher up in the tower, Heron shouting out too from next to Tom on the platform. Turning around to see what the commotion was about, Tom saw Glera come flying by the keep, having doubled back a little for some reason. Then Colt dropped off her, coming in to land in front of Rachuk, like lightning from a clear sky. Mind if I borrow him? Old girl wants him for the chase, the healer questioned, pointing at Tom while looking at Rachuk. Chase? Tom questioned, looking to Rachuk, hoping for an explanation. I ain't going nowhere, what about them? Tom protested, pointing up at where Jarix and the Red had seemingly gotten into a turning fight. The 50 had fallen silent. Damn that fucking gun, Tom cursed, before Rachuk replied. She tried to kill my mother, Tom, and I can't leave. I order you to enact revenge in my name. Thank you very much, Colt went, grabbing Tom around the chest and running off the platform with him, before he even got off a proper protest. The next thing Sapphire knew, she was tumbling through the air, while spinning and ears ringing. Instincts kicked up as she spread her wings, turning herself into a dive before pulling up and flying around erratically, trying to make heads or tails of what the hell was going on. What just happened? Was her first question, as her eyes started to focus again. She was greeted with a vaguely dragonette-shaped silhouette flying towards her, in fairly heavy-looking armour. Oh, thank the gods of Jordan. Wait, hang on, Saph questioned, her foggy mind starting to clear, noting the spear the guy was holding. Fuck, she let out, pulling into a hard right corkscrew and heading for the deck. She needed speed, and she needed it now. If I live, Redexy, I will draw and quarter you, she cursed, looking back over her shoulder, and confirming he was on her tail. Much to her relief, he was wearing what looked like slightly heavier guard armour, and he was male. Outflying him should be no problem. Then she started looking around behind her, eyes darting between silhouettes flying over her. Despair started to set in, as she realised just how much trouble she was in. There were at least 10 of them, and now she seemed to have the attention of at least a few of them. Looking back ahead as she dived, she spotted the Major's men currently tangled up with more escorts. Saf guessed they might have been from the Black Dragon. Saf only just noticed a woman coming in from the front and above, bow at the ready, in time to bank hard right, trying desperately to dodge the arrow. Saf let out a roar, as it buried itself in the side of her thigh just below the skirt. She fumbled desperately to get her own bow off her shoulder, breathing rapidly as she thanked whoever might be watching that she hadn't dropped it or her quiver. She didn't get to return fire though, as another male tried to swoop at her from above, driving her into an even steeper dive, sending her near vertical as he screamed past the Major and the others. The guy in her tail just didn't seem to get the memo though, as he followed her down, Quincy turning to dive down after him. "Fuck it!" Saf let out, folding up her wings and turning around to let herself fall towards the ground back first, knocking an arrow. The guy was still on her, and his heavy armour had let him catch up in the dive, though Quincy was hot on his tail. He would make it to Saf first though, but this was as close as he was going to get. Saf put a shaft in the base of his neck, just grazing the side of his helmet. Giving the guy the finger, she rolled back onto her belly and spread out her wings, pulling up hard and trying to get back whatever altitude she could. She scanned above her for the next incoming threat as her pursuer plummeted behind her. Predictably, she was swooped on by multiple enemies, likely having made a target of herself by not only killing one of their friends, but also by letting them know she really knew how to use a bow. She didn't even bother to count, instead just loosening a shaft at one of the women who looked lightly armoured and guiding the arrow into her gut, making her curl up mid-air. Then she started juking the incoming combatants, trying to make them miss or overshoot. She managed to evade 2 of them with the help of Quincy, who was flying a bit higher than Saf, managing to score a hit, clipping the wing of one woman who got too fixated on Saf. The Swordwoman's blade took off a good metre of wing, sending the wounded brigand limping away. But the last 2 who had Saf in their sights came in together, and she only managed to nearly slip past the claws of the first of them. The second, a one-legged woman, came roaring past, her remaining foot nicking Sapphire's right wing. Having rolled out of the way, a guy slammed into her from the other side, spear glancing off her chestplate. The rigid steel plate was likely the only reason the breath wasn't completely knocked out of her, as the 2 collided. The brigand's helmet and spear went flying, as the 2 of them fell towards the ground. Saf scrambled to get a grip on the guy to pry him off, knowing she could not have much hide left over by now. The brigand drew a short sword and tried to stab her, but Saf beat him to it, biting down in his face and squeezing as hard as she could. The guy screamed in pain, bone cracking in her jaws as he dropped the blade, hands screaming to claw at her face trying to free himself as she drew her knife and ran him through, stabbing up under his armpit. Drawing the knife back, she stabbed repeatedly, until he went limp in her jaws. Kicking him off as quickly as she could, the blood from his clawing was running into her eyes as she frantically tried to look for the next incoming threat. She spotted the woman that had shot her once, already coming back down, bow at the ready and screaming as she loosened. She missed the first shot by inches, then as Saf drew a breath, ready to deflect the second shot, the woman's head just vanished, Jackie soaring past above, spent shell diligently being put back in her pocket. "Oh, you magnificent bastard!" Saf cried out, letting out a sigh of relief which soon turned to terror as she saw the massive red shape hurtling down towards her. She pulled up to vertical with what speed she had, wings beating hard trying to evade the dive, until she realised she was not the target. Behind the red, Jax was diving after him. Only now did she see the blackened and burned underside of the blue dragon, the red seeming desperate to escape retaliation. The next thing she saw, mouth agape, was Jackie reversing her own turn, heading straight for the dragon, matching his dive and using her knife to latch onto his back as when it roared past. They both came hurtling down past Sapphire, the dragon pulling up just shy of the ground and whipping his head around to try and rip Jackie to pieces. She had moved forwards on his back though, out of reach, as she blew apart the last remaining crew member with a point-blank shotgun round to the face, before advancing up to the base of the dragon's neck, taloned feet securely grasping the dragon's harness. Saf noticed she didn't hear that shot either, cursing Redexy once again as she kept watching. The red tried shaking her off, swinging its head around again to snatch at her. Jackie launched herself off the dragon's back faster than she had any right being able to, clasping onto the side of the dragon's head, wing claws helping her hang on. Then she shoved her gun into the dragon's ear and pulled the trigger. Gore splattered out as the dragon shuddered and went limp, pitching down and heading for the ground. Jackie jumped clear, folding out her wings and beating half her speed and altitude as the dragon crashed under her, liquid fire spilling forth and covering the ground from his ruined chest as it came to an abrupt stop. "Holy shit! She just killed a dragon!" Saf muttered to herself, gliding along, gawking until she remembered she was still in the middle of a battle. Scanning above her, she spotted foe close in the tail of another brigand, shredding their wing with a swarm of lead, sending the stricken dragonette spiralling towards the ground, clearly trying for a crash landing. Beating her wings hard, Saf tried to gain some speed as she turned towards the Major, who was currently flying in formation with one more dragonette. She couldn't see who, though, as she wiped blood out of her eyes, the world getting a slightly bluish tint. She formed up with the Major, as the fighting seemed to start coming down. Several of the brigands surrendered under the hail of fire, the prospect of fighting without a dragon leaving little hope of escape. Two of them tried to make a run for it, Jerry setting off in pursuit and cutting them off with ease. They were both fried alive when they refused to yield. Fucking idiots, Seth cursed, as the two unlucky souls fell towards the ground, blackened and burned. The Major poked at her wingtip with his own, getting her attention. His mouth moved, and he had a stern look in his face. Seth just pointed at her ears and shook her head, the Major's soul just sagging. But it wasn't my damn fault. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he shouted, once they were properly airborne and flying towards Glera. "Glera wants to show off, and she wants you to see it. Just hang on and be a good boy, won't you?" the healer replied, sounding like this definitely wasn't her idea. "We're hunting down the wounded Black, can't let her get away." "She's going after the Black, what about Jerix?" "Unless he's forgotten everything, he's won already. That was a nasty burn, though." "And if she's wrong?" "Not my concern," Cog replied dispassionately, as she sat down on Glera's back, the dragon manoeuvring around to come in behind them. "Glad you could make it! Now hang on and don't touch anything. It is time for a demonstration," the dragon went enthusiastically, as she turned to give chase to the Black Dragon, accelerating back up to speed as Tom hunkered down. "He is not happy with this," Cog informed the dragon, as Tom looked around, seeing the rather apologetic-looking Fengi and Essie already hanging onto the harness, lying down on the dragon's back. Bo, who just gave him away before looking back at the keep. "Why? We just saved their home." "You snatched me away from defending it. There was still that red flying," Tom protested, pointing at the red dragon that, to his surprise, was now flying almost along the deck. Jax was following along above, clearly looking for a good opportunity to strike. There were two dragonettes on the red's back now, both moving around. A gun was fired, leaving just one dragonette left, who then jumped onto the fucking dragon's head. Then the dragon just killed over in mid-air and crashed in a fiery explosion, leaving Tom gawking, as the still-living dragonette flew away, the fighting above coming to a halt for a few seconds. "Was that Jackie?" Fengi questioned from behind Tom, as Glera kept flying further away from the keep. "Well, I guess she got her trophy," Essie let out, sounding somewhere between impressed and terrified. "I see where you like her," Glera chuckled deeply, "though I'm gonna have to work on that little blue scamp. You lot have made him weak. Fired too soon, failed to react in time, as she got outflown by a red twice his size." "Only briefly," Cog corrected, raising a finger as Tom just sat back gawking back at the crash site, the remaining brigands seemingly either surrendering or making a run for it, after having recovered from the shock. "He still did. Fucking embarrassing. Now, we have ourselves a black dragon who thinks she can fly around, I'm guessing extorting?" Glera went, looking back ahead, Tom's attention swinging around to look as well. "Something like that, yeah. Calls herself the tax collector." "Oh, does she now? Isn't that precious? Hey, Cog, should we add impersonating an emissary of the crown to the list?" Glera almost laughed, Tom wondering just what her plan was. They weren't going that fast right now. It certainly wasn't cruising, but it was not flat out either, that was for sure. "Well, if she doesn't surrender, you still get to kill her. Otherwise it's just more years in the mines." "I know. Remember, Jarrett's told me to be professional today, so I guess we have to try and capture her. I already lost the competition anyway, since Jackie was on his team." "Team?" Tom just thought to himself before sighing, realising they were still going. "Want to run this one racket?" Cog questioned, clearly directed at the dragon. "Yeah, something like that. Think I'll get a nice bonus for the capture of a strapping black dragon like that. She looks to be pretty decent size." "You were just tying her out?" Tom questioned, shouting over the wind. "Of course. Never fight fair. With the species going and the very nice wound you put on her, thank you very much, by the way, she won't have the strength to make it to the next island, meaning she's got to stay here. We just follow her until she either surrenders or decides to turn and fight, likely soon after we are out of sight of the keep. Even if she tries to surrender, I would be happy to kill her for you. You know, good old-fashioned revenge?" Glera questioned, sounding quite serious. Tom honestly couldn't tell if she actually was. He really hoped not. "No, just capture her or something," Tom exclaimed, before thinking it all over. This was a mercenary, brigand, or whatever, and by the sounds of it, a self-employed one, and Tshirt had told him to get revenge from the Nook. Then again, what if they had been hired? How they might even have been sent by another faction in the Inquisition. If they can make her talk, they might learn a lot. "As you wish. I still think she's going to try and fight anyway, once she figures out she can't run." "You have done this before, haven't you?" Tom questioned, looking ahead at the black dragon, who was clearly giving it everything right now. "Darling, I've killed more dragons than you have fingers," Glera chuckled, settling into a fast cruise and holding altitude. "Now just hang on and enjoy the show. I want you to know what you are missing out on by not giving me what I want." Noted, Tom just let out, moving further back to lie next to Fengi, just in case he needed someone to hang on to. True to form, he did not have his parachute due to the rather unorthodox takeoff. Looking ahead, they were not losing much distance from the Black Dragon despite her clearly flying flat out. Tom finally put down his goggles too to deal with the wind. What happened down there? Essie questioned Tom, looking back at the 300s. The Nook got hit bad, otherwise we're good, Tom replied. Not sure just how good news that was. How bad? Pretty bad, but I don't know how bad, Tom growled, looking towards Colk. Just following orders, the healer replied, not looking at him. She was splashed across the back. Doubt she's got wings anymore, but she'll live, Glira added. And what makes you say that? Essie questioned, not seeming convinced. There's not an inch of that armor. That's not enchanted, but the wings are exposed. She didn't take it in the face, right? No, Tom replied uncertainly, trying to think back. It hadn't looked like it. And she's got a healer with her right away. Armor will need repairs, but she'll live, Glira reaffirmed, seeming quite sure of herself. Then again, Tom didn't think that counted for much. Dumb Black must have nearly emptied her tank putting that kind of display. Stuff was everywhere, Glira continued, muttering to herself like she was scheming or something. Think she's right, Essie? The Nook is going to be okay? Fengi shouted out over the roar of the wind. I hope so, the older Huntress replied, looking back at the keep, seeming very worried. Tom, too, looked back, wondering if he should be back there even if he knew jack shit about acid burns. Then it hit him. Colk was a healer too, an experienced one at that. If anything, she should be there. Especially considering she was a combat healer. She would have seen injuries like that before. Glira, send Colk back to help fix the Nook, Tom shouted out, raising his head against the wind. You want me to send my only healer away as I go into battle? Is this a test? Sure, just fucking send her. I'm guessing you know acid burns, right? He shouted, looking at Colk. Sure, plenty, the healer replied, actually seeming a touch relieved. Then go help the one with acid burns, Tom reiterated, as if that was fucking obvious. You heard the man, go fix the old lady. I'll be back with the carcass or slave eventually, Glira replied, still looking ahead. Yes, ma'am, Colk replied, giving Tom a quick salute before opening her wings and letting the wind rip her from Glira's back, flying back towards the keep, and leaving just Tom and the 300s on board. I guess I might get to see you fight then, human. She still has 2 crew left. Fine. I'll be your damn sentry gun. What? Never mind. When Saf had tried coming into land, there had been a flurry of activity on the platform. People everywhere, distraught kids running back and forth. She had real trouble seeing for the blood. Her world having a bit of a blue tint to it right now. As she came in, her right leg collapsed under her, leaving her sitting on her ass and clutching her leg, which only made the pain worse. Ray had come running over as Saf tried getting back up. With her help, Saf had gone back to her feet, hobbling inside while leaning on the older woman, who was already fussing over the wounds to Saf's face. Marko better like scars, Saf cursed to herself, as she winced at Ray's touch, trying not to pull her head away. The wounded brigands had been set off to the side, one of their own healers seemingly having been allowed to oversee their care. All weapons had been handed over, under the watchful eye of Rachuk, who was seemingly split between keeping a close eye on them and looking worriedly at Anchor. Anchor seeming to be bringing Rachuk news, the captain listening intently. Saf just sighed as she couldn't hear a thing of what was said. Marko had come running over, dropping a bucket of sand he had been carrying, looking at her hesitantly while asking questions by the looks of it. Ray said something in reply before he moved to let Saf lean on him, Ray running off in a hurry. He led her to the infirmary, when the Nook was lying on her belly in one of the beds, Saf stopping for a moment to stare. She didn't need hearing to tell the old lady was in agony, writhing around on the bed while clutching Dakota's hand, tears in her eyes as she screamed. Saf had never seen the old lady like this, and she winced as Lincosta removed part of the lady's wing, still dripping acid. She was wearing the gauntlets from her mother's armour. The bone looked like it had been burnt through, flesh and the skin actually dripping off as it was set aside. Heron quickly covered it with sand and took it outside, Saf noting the acrid smell in the air. I guess the dragon did get her, Saf whispered to herself, looking at the scene as Ray came around her side while clutching a black children's slate, giving Saf a tight hug. Saf returned the favour with the arm not commonly wrapped around Marko, feeling the two of them pick her up and move her to a free bed, where they soon got to work on removing the arrow that was still sticking out of her leg. Saf didn't need to hear what Marko said as he got out a knife, Ray coming up with a cloth for Saf to bite down on. She had tried this charade before, and she didn't hold back the screams as Marko started cutting at the Bodkin arrow. It would seem Marko wasn't a rookie either on the subject, quickly extracting the arrow and getting to work bandaging it up, as Ray started cleaning Saf's face with water and a wet rag. Saf winced again as Ray touched the back of her neck, Ray quickly putting her hand back before turning Saf's head to have a look. Saf knew her bird when she felt one, and she again cursed with Dexy. Ray went to get some salve to put on under the bandage. Thank the gods for that shopping trip at Quillen's Potions, Seth chuckled to herself, as the likely expensive salve was applied to the back of her neck. As Ray worked, Quincy was brought in, clearly heavily wounded too. Seth thought back to the woman saving her ass above. Seth had forgot to check her 6 for Quen afterwards, shoulders sagging as she saw the bloody and torn chainmail protecting the woman's neck, blood still leaking everywhere. Unkai had been moved away from his work on the Nook, leaving just Dakota, Lincosta and a Puma to work on the lady, who was at best, Saf could tell, crying into her husband's arms, which took nowhere to be seen. As Saf looked over at Quincy, she tapped on Ray's shoulder, pointing at Quinn. How bad? Ray quickly jotted down something on the slate, showing it to Saf. Neck wound. She'll live. Just need to stop bleeding. Did we lose anyone? No. We stayed inside. Only Nook went out. Saf allowed herself a amused little laugh, almost crying a little with relief. That was absurd. Beset by 2 dragons and not a single dead among them. The Nook was crippled for life, that much was for certain. But they were all still here. That's incredible. Saf finally got out, as Ray started looking at her with concern. Understandably too, in Saf's mind. Yes, you did good, Ray went, with a big smile, as the Major peeked his head inside the room, walking over to Quincy, talking with her for a bit and letting Unkai hand. Saf allowed herself to just lean her head back on the pillow after Ray finished with the burn bandages, looking up at the ceiling as she felt Marko finish his work on her leg for now. When a healer had time, they would take another look at it. He came up to her head, looking down at her, before asking Ray for the slate. How are you feeling? Leg hurts. Face is fucked. How bad is it? She replied, filling her face as Ray started laying bandages on the cuts. You'll look just great, he wrote down, with a smile, caressing one of the few parts of her face that hadn't been scratched up. Hope you like scars, she chuckled, as Marko's hands moved to help Ray instead. As they worked, Major Dawson came over. Marko nodded to him and handing him the slate. Thank you. Very good distraction, he wrote, Saf looking at it curiously. Distraction? The Major tilted his head in reply, then went to write some more. Yes, escorts were diving on us. You broke their attack. I did, Saf questioned, confused. You didn't mean to? Oh no, definitely, it was all planned, Saf replied with a pained chuckle, as Marko touched a cut in the side of her neck. Then why disembark? Saf pointed at her ears. Toteki fired the machine gun over my head, blew out my ears and knocked me out cold. I woke up again mid-air. The Major looked down at her a touch apprehensively, before wiping the slate and writing again. Must have been quite the ride. You could say that, Seth replied. How's Quincy doing? She will live. Displeased you did not have her back. Sorry, Seth replied, looking away ashamed. The Major just holding the slate down in front of her field of view. It makes more sense now why. I'll hold nothing against you, it said. Saf sighed as Ray and Marko moved her head back to where it had been, as they just kept up the bandaging. I'm going to look like a burn victim at this rate, Saf mused to herself, trying to keep her spirits up and looking over at Dakota and the burns covering her face. It was not hideous, but anyone could tell what had happened. I mean, still, I knew she was behind me. She'll live. Might not have if not for you, too many of them. How many? Seth replied, looking at him. 9 total from Red Dragon, 4 dead, including 1 you stabbed. And from the Black Dragon? 14 total, 5 dead, 2 ran with her. They lost a dragon and 9 dragonettes? And we lost no one, Seth went with a smile. Anyone could be proud of that, better equipment or not. Black's still flying, Jordan wrote, showing it to Saf. Glyra took Tom to go after her. She did what?